The grand reception, the crystal chandeliers of harmony, prime space station cast rainbow. Reflections across the polished marble floor as hundreds of diplomats from across the galaxy mingled in the grand ballroom. Zara Blackwood adjusted her emerald green evening gown for the third time in 5 minutes, her nervous energy making it impossible to stand still. As Earth's youngest diplomatic attaché, she had worked tirelessly for 3 years to earn her place at the Galactic Peace Summit. But now that she was here, surrounded by beings from dozens of different worlds, she felt completely out of her depth. "Stop fidgeting," whispered Captain Jenna Cross, her best friend since their academy days. Jenna looked stunning in her dress uniform, her auburn hair pulled back in a perfect bun. "You belong here just as much as anyone else." Zara took a deep breath and smoothed her long black hair behind her shoulders. "Easy for you to say. You get to carry a weapon. Just have to smile and make small talk with beings who could probably destroy Earth with a thought." The two women had grown up together in the orbital colonies, dreaming of adventures among the stars. While Jenna had chosen the military path, Zara had pursued diplomacy, believing that words were more powerful than weapons. Tonight would test that belief. The prince's entrance, a hush fell over the ballroom as the massive doors opened with a soft pneumatic whisper. Prince Kellen Vorthok of the Celestial Empire entered with the grace of a predator and the bearing of absolute royalty. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his humanoid form enhanced by the subtle blue luminescence that ran through the intricate patterns etched into his pale skin. His hair was silver white, flowing past his shoulders like liquid moonlight, and his eyes were the color of deep space, dark blue with tiny points of light that seemed to shift like distant stars. He wore robes of midnight blue silk, adorned with precious metals that seemed to move and shift with their own inner light. Behind him walked Ambassador Theron, his advisor and closest friend, whose more subdued appearance only served to highlight the prince's otherworldly beauty. "Now there's trouble in a pretty package," Jenna murmured under her breath. Zara found herself staring despite her better judgment. The Celestial Empire was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, and Prince Kellen was heir to a throne. That commanded respect from 1,000 worlds. He was also, according to her briefing materials, arrogant, demanding, and completely convinced of his own superiority. The fatal misstep, as the evening progressed, Zara found herself navigating. Conversations with remarkable success. Her natural charm and genuine curiosity about other cultures served her well, and she began to relax for the first time since boarding the station. She was heading toward the refreshment table, a glass of Arcarian wine in her hand, when disaster struck. Someone bumped into her from behind just as Prince Kellen was passing nearby. The wine glass flew from her grip in a perfect arc, its contents splashing across the front of his pristine robes. The entire ballroom seemed to freeze as the deep red liquid dripped from the priceless silk to the marble floor. Prince Kellen looked down at his ruined clothing, then slowly raised his gaze to meet Zara's horrified eyes. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire ready to snap. Zara could feel hundreds of eyes watching, waiting to see how this unprecedented breach of protocol would unfold. "I am so sorry," Zara began, reaching instinctively toward him with her napkin. "Let me help you clean that up." The prince stepped back sharply, his expression shifting from shock to cold fury. "Do not touch me," he said, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of royal breeding. The confrontation, Zara's cheeks burned with embarrassment, but something in his tone triggered her defensive instincts. She had grown up fighting for every opportunity, earning respect through hard work rather than birthright, and his dismissive attitude rankled her pride. "Look, I said I was sorry," she replied, her voice stronger than she felt. "It was an accident. There's no need to be so dramatic about it." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Several diplomats actually stepped backward as if expecting lightning to strike. Prince Kellen's luminescent patterns flared brighter, a sign of extreme emotion among his people. "Dramatic." His voice was dangerously quiet. "Do you have any idea who you are addressing, human?" "Actually, yes," Zara shot back, her temper finally overriding her diplomatic training. "You're Prince Kellen Vorthok, heir to the celestial throne, commander of the 7th Fleet, and apparently someone who thinks a little spilled wine is the end of the universe. Jenna appeared at her side, placing a warning hand on her arm, but Zara was beyond caring about consequences. "I apologize sincerely, but I won't grovel just because you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth." A royal rage, Prince Kellen took a step closer, his imposing height forcing Zara to crane her neck to maintain eye contact. "Do you even know who I am?" he demanded, his voice rising enough for the entire ballroom to hear. "How dare you humiliate me in public like this?" "Humiliate you?" Zara's voice cracked with incredulous laughter. "You're humiliating yourself by throwing a tantrum over an accident. I've seen children handle disappointment with more grace." The luminescent patterns across his skin pulsed with rapid flashes of blue and silver, and for a moment, Zara wondered if she had pushed too far. The power emanating from him was palpable, alien, and dangerous. "You forget yourself, human," he said through gritted teeth. "I could have you removed from this station with a word." "Then do it," Zara challenged, taking a step forward despite the warning signals from every survival instinct she possessed. "But don't expect me to apologize for treating you like a person instead of a deity." The aftermath before Prince Kellen could respond, Ambassador Theron smoothly intervened, his diplomatic experience evident in the way he diffused the tension without diminishing either party. "Your Highness," he said calmly, "perhaps we should retire so you can change into fresh attire. The evening is still young, and there are many important conversations awaiting your attention." The prince's gaze remained locked with Zara's for several more heartbeats, something unreadable flickering in those star-filled eyes. Then he turned sharply, his robes billowing behind him as he strode toward the exit. The crowd parted before him like water before the prow of a ship. As soon as he was gone, the ballroom erupted in hushed conversations and speculative whispers. Zara realized her hands were shaking and quickly clasped them behind her back. "Well," Jenna said dryly, "that went about as badly as it possibly could have." Unexpected consequences, word of the confrontation, spread through the station's diplomatic quarters within hours, and by morning, everyone from the Andromedan trade representatives to the Syrian cultural attaches had heard some version of the story. Most painted Zara as either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, depending on their own relationship with the Celestial Empire. Zara spent a sleepless night replaying the encounter, alternating between embarrassment at her loss of composure and stubborn pride that she had stood up to royal arrogance. She had worked too hard to get here to let one mistake destroy her career. But she couldn't shake the feeling that the prince's reaction had been about more than just spilled wine. There had been something in his eyes in that final moment. A flash of what looked almost like respect beneath the anger. Or perhaps that was just wishful thinking on her part. The next morning brought an unexpected message to her quarters. The script was elegant and formal, written in the flowing characters of the celestial language, with a translation provided below. "The prince requests your presence at a private meeting to discuss matters of mutual concern. 8. Noon observation. Deck 7. Come alone." Jenna, reading over her shoulder, whistled low. "Either he's planning to apologize, or he's going to throw you out an airlock." "Only one way to find out," Zara replied, though her stomach churned with nervousness. As she prepared for what could be her final diplomatic mission, Zara couldn't help wondering what Prince Kellen Vorthok really wanted from her. Whatever it was, she was determined to face it with the same courage that had gotten her into this mess in the first place. The secret meeting observation deck 7 was deserted when Zara arrived, its massive transparent walls offering a breathtaking view of the Andromeda Nebula. The swirling clouds of pink and gold gas stretched across space like a cosmic painting. But Zara barely noticed the beauty. Her attention was focused on the tall figure standing silhouetted against the starfield. Prince Kellen had traded his formal robes for simpler attire, though even his casual clothing was made from fabrics that seemed to shimmer with their own light. His silver hair was unbound, flowing freely past his shoulders, and the luminescent patterns on his skin glowed softly in the dim lighting. He looked younger somehow, less intimidating without the pomp and ceremony of royal protocol. "You came," he said, without turning around, his voice carrying none of the anger from the night before. "Your message didn't exactly give me a choice," Zara replied, keeping her distance. "What do you want, Your Highness?" He turned then, and she was struck again by the otherworldly beauty of his features. His star-filled eyes seemed to see straight through her, and she had to resist the urge to fidget under his gaze. "I want to make you an offer," he said simply. "The peace negotiations between your people and mine have reached an impasse. Both sides are too proud to compromise, too suspicious to trust. They need mediators who understand both perspectives." Zara frowned. "What does that have to do with me?" "An unexpected proposal. You proved last night that you are not intimidated by royal authority," Kellen said, moving closer. "You speak your mind regardless of consequences. These are rare qualities in a diplomat. They're also qualities that apparently get me into trouble with alien princes," Zara shot back. To her surprise, Kellen smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. Gone was the cold arrogance, replaced by something warmer and infinitely more dangerous to her peace of mind. "Indeed," he agreed, "which is precisely why I need your help. The trade agreements we are negotiating will affect billions of lives across both our civilizations, but the talks have stalled because neither side trusts the other's motives." Zara crossed her arms. "And you think pairing us up will solve that problem?" "After what happened last night," I think Kellen said carefully, "that our conflict demonstrated something important. We can disagree passionately and still maintain respect for each other. That is the foundation of any successful negotiation." There was something in his tone that made Zara study his face more carefully. Behind the confident words, she glimpsed something vulnerable, almost desperate. "There's more to this," she said. "What aren't you telling me?" The burden of royalty. Kellen was quiet for a long moment, his gaze returning to the nebula beyond the windows. When he spoke, his voice was softer, more human somehow. "My father is dying," he said simply. "The physicians give him perhaps 6 months. When he passes, I will inherit not just the throne, but responsibility for the welfare of over 200 billion souls across 47 worlds." Zara felt her anger toward him soften despite herself. "I'm sorry. That must be terrifying." "It is," he admitted, and the honesty in his voice surprised her. "I have been raised for this role my entire life, but I have never felt ready for it. These peace talks represent my first major diplomatic initiative, and if I fail—" He trailed off, but Zara could hear the weight of expectation in his silence. "If you fail, people will see it as a sign of weakness," she finished for him. "Exactly." Kellen turned back to face her, and she saw a flash of gratitude in his eyes. "My advisors believe I should take a hard line, demand concessions, show strength. But I think there is more strength in finding common ground." Zara found herself reassessing everything she thought she knew about the arrogant prince. "That's why you need me. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge you, who can help you find that middle ground. Someone who will treat me like a person, instead of a deity," he said, echoing her words from the night before. Working together the next few days fell into a rhythm that surprised them both. They met each morning in a private conference room, poring over trade agreements and cultural exchange protocols. Kellen proved to be brilliant and surprisingly humble, willing to admit when he didn't understand something and genuinely interested in human perspectives. Zara discovered that beneath his royal training lay a sharp mind and a dry sense of humor. That caught her off guard. When she challenged his assumptions, he listened thoughtfully instead of taking offense. When she suggested alternative approaches, he considered them seriously rather than dismissing them out of hand. "Your people value individual achievement over collective harmony," Kellen observed during one afternoon session, studying a proposal for educational exchanges. "This troubles many in my government who believe it leads to chaos and conflict. And your people value consensus and tradition over innovation," Zara countered, "which my government sees as stagnation and oppression. Both perspectives have merit. How do we bridge such fundamental differences in worldview?" Zara leaned back in her chair considering. "Maybe we start by acknowledging that both approaches have strengths and weaknesses. Your people's emphasis on harmony has created stable, peaceful societies. Our emphasis on individualism has driven incredible innovation and progress. What if we could combine the best of both?" Growing attraction. As the days passed, Zara found herself looking forward to their meetings with an anticipation that had nothing to do with diplomacy. Kellen was incredibly attractive, but more than that, he was intellectually stimulating in a way she had never experienced. Their debates were like dances, each challenging the other to think more deeply, more creatively. She caught herself watching, the way his luminescent patterns shifted with his emotions, learning to read the subtle changes that indicated amusement, frustration, or deep thought. When he smiled, which happened more frequently now, her heart did little flips that she tried to ignore. Kellen, for his part, seemed equally affected. She noticed how his gaze lingered on her face when he thought she wasn't looking, how he found excuses to stand closer to her when they reviewed documents together. The formal distance he maintained with everyone else gradually disappeared when they were alone. "It surprised me constantly," he said one evening as they worked late, the conference room dimly lit by the soft glow of their tablets. "I have never met anyone who challenges me the way you do. Is that good or bad?" Zara asked, suddenly very aware of how close they were sitting. "It is ... Kaelan paused, seeming to struggle for the right word. "Intoxicating. Danger. In paradise, they're growing." Closeness did not go unnoticed. Ambassador Theron approached Zara privately one afternoon, his usually friendly demeanor replaced by concern. "I must speak with you about the prince," he said without preamble. "There are those in the celestial court who view your influence over him as dangerous." "My influence?" Zara was genuinely surprised. "We're just working together on the negotiations." "Are you?" Theron studied her carefully. "Because from where I stand, it looks like something much more personal is developing between you." Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. Even if that were true, what business is it of theirs? "Prince Kellen is expected to marry within the nobility," Theron explained gently. "A union that will strengthen political alliances and secure trade agreements. His personal feelings, while important to him, are secondary to his duties as heir." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. She had been foolish to think that whatever was growing between them could lead anywhere. They lived in different worlds, literally and figuratively. "I understand," she said quietly. "Thank you for being honest with me." But even as she said the words, Zara knew it was too late. She was already falling for the alien prince, and judging by the way he looked at her, the feeling was mutual. The question was what they were going to do about it. The conspiracy revealed that night, Zara was walking back to her quarters when she overheard a conversation that chilled her blood. Two figures were speaking in hushed tones near the maintenance section, their voices carrying in the empty corridor. "The negotiations are proceeding too smoothly," one said in accented standard. "If they succeed, both governments will see it as validation of moderate policies. Cannot allow that." "The incident is planned for tomorrow's signing ceremony," replied the other. "It will appear to be an attack by human extremists, but the prince will be the primary target. With him dead, the hardliners on both sides will seize control." Zara pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding. Someone was planning to assassinate Kellen and frame her people for it. The peace talks, their growing relationship, everything they had worked for would be destroyed in an instant. She had to warn him, but would he believe her? And more importantly, could they stop the conspiracy before it was too late? As the conspirators moved away, Zara realized that everything she cared about hung in the balance. Not just the peace between their peoples, but the man who had somehow captured her heart in the space of a few short days. Tomorrow's ceremony would determine the fate of billions, and possibly the future of the only relationship that had ever truly mattered to her. The warning Zara ran through the corridors of Harmony Prime, her heart hammering against her ribs. The signing ceremony was set to begin in less than an hour, and she had to reach Kellen before the assassins struck. The conspiracy she had overheard was elaborate and deadly, designed to destroy not just the prince, but the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build. She burst into the prince's preparation chamber without ceremony, startling both Kellen and Ambassador Theron. Kellen was dressed in his formal ceremonial robes, the midnight blue silk adorned with silver threading that caught the light like captured starlight. He looked magnificent and terrible, every inch the royal heir, but Zara saw past the pomp to the man beneath. Zara. Kellen's concern was immediate and genuine. "There's going to be an assassination attempt," she gasped, struggling to catch her breath. "During the ceremony, I overheard them planning it. Theron stepped forward, his expression skeptical. That is a serious accusation. Do you have proof? I know what I heard, Zara insisted, focusing on Kellen. They plan to kill you and make it look like human extremists were responsible. It will destroy everything we've accomplished. Kellen studied her face intently, those star-filled eyes, seeming to read her very soul. You believe this threat is real? I know it is, Zara replied. Kellen, please. You have to cancel the ceremony. Trust and betrayal cancel. Theron looked aghast. Your Highness, surely you cannot consider such drastic action based on the word of a human who has already demonstrated questionable judgment. Kellen's luminescent patterns flared slightly, a sign of rising anger that Zara had learned to recognize. Ambassador Theron, I would ask you to remember that this human has proven herself invaluable to our negotiations. Zara says there is danger, I believe her. The trust in his voice made Zara's heart swell, even as the situation grew more desperate. We need to identify the conspirators and stop them, she said urgently. Can you increase security without alerting them to our knowledge? I can try, Kellen said, already moving toward his communication device. But before he could activate it, the door burst open, and armed figures in station security uniforms flooded the room. Nobody moved, commanded their leader, a tall man, with cold eyes that Zara recognized as one of the voices from the corridor. By order of station command, you are all under arrest for conspiracy to commit treason. Zara's blood ran cold as she realized the depth of the conspiracy. The plotters had infiltrated station security itself, and now they were trapped. The trap springs. This is ridiculous, Theron protested. On what grounds? Intelligence indicates that the human diplomat has convinced Prince Kellen to sabotage the peace talks in favor of Earth's interests. The security leader replied smoothly. She is to be detained as a spy, and the prince will be held for questioning. Kellen stepped protectively in front of Zara, his royal authority radiating from him like heat. I am heir to the celestial throne. You have no authority to detain me. Actually, Your Highness, we do. Another figure entered the room, and Zara's heart sank as she recognized Counselor Vex, one of the Celestial Court's hardline faction. Under emergency protocols, threats to imperial security supersede even royal privilege. Zara realized with growing horror that the conspiracy reached into the highest levels of both governments. The moderate voices on both sides were being systematically eliminated, clearing the way for extremists to seize power. Kellen, she whispered urgently, they're going to kill you whether you cooperate or not. This was always the plan. His luminescent patterns pulsed rapidly as he processed her words and their implications. Then, to everyone's surprise, he smiled with dangerous confidence. In that case, he said calmly, I suppose we have nothing to lose. The prince's gambit. What happened next unfolded so quickly that Zara barely had time to process it. Kellen's hand shot out, activating an emergency communication protocol that sent an instant alert to every ship in the system. His voice, amplified and transmitted across all channels, rang out with royal authority. This is Prince Kellen Vorthok. I am under attack by conspirators who seek to destroy the peace between our peoples. Security has been compromised. Call upon all loyal forces to converge on Harmony Prime immediately as the fake security team raised their weapons. But Kellen was already moving. The luminescent patterns across his skin blazed with brilliant light. And Zara remembered too late that the celestial royal bloodline carried genetic enhancements that made them formidable warriors as well as rulers. He moved like liquid lightning, disarming the nearest attacker and using the man's own weapon to provide covering fire. Zara, get behind the conference table, he commanded, even as he fought off 3 opponents simultaneously. But there were too many of them, and more were pouring through the door. Just when it seemed they would be overwhelmed, the cavalry arrived. Rescue and Revelation Captain Jenna Cross burst through the maintenance entrance with a squad of Earth Marines, their weapons trained on the conspirators. Earth security, stand down immediately. The battle was brief, but intense. When the smoke cleared, most of the fake security team was in custody, though Counselor Vex had escaped in the confusion. Zara found herself pressed against the wall. Shaking from adrenaline, while Kellen stood over the defeated attackers with regal composure despite his torn robes. "How did you know to come?" Zara asked Jenna breathlessly. "Your emergency beacon activated when the shooting started," Jenna explained. "We monitored the prince's broadcast and put the pieces together. Turns out there were similar plots targeting the human delegation." Kellen moved to Zara's side, his hands gentle as he checked her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "No, thanks to you." Zara looked up at him with new admiration. "I had no idea you could fight like that, or many things." "You do not yet know about me," he said softly, his star-filled eyes holding promises that made her pulse quicken. Love's declaration in the aftermath of the attack. As security teams swept the station and emergency protocols secured the peace talks, Zara found herself alone with Kellen in his private quarters. Formal ceremonial robes had been replaced with simple clothing, and he looked younger, more human somehow. "The ceremony will be postponed until we can ensure security," he said, pouring 2 glasses of celestial wine with hands that were remarkably steady for someone who had just survived an assassination attempt. "Will the talks survive this?" Zara asked, accepting the glass gratefully. "They will," Kellen assured her. "The attack actually served to unite both delegations against the extremist factions. Sometimes nothing brings people together like a common enemy." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened settling between them. Finally, Zara found the courage to voice the question that had been burning in her heart. "What happens now?" "Between us, I mean." Kellen set down his wine and turned to face her fully. "Zara, I need you to know something. What I feel for you has nothing to do with diplomacy or politics. When I saw those weapons pointed at you, when I thought I might lose you before I had the chance to tell you," he trailed off, seeming to struggle with words that had never been difficult for him before. "Tell me what?" Zara prompted gently. "The royal heart that I love you," Kellen said simply, and the words hung in the air between them like a sacred vow. "I know it is impossible. I know there are 1,000 reasons why we cannot be together, but I had to say it at least once." Zara felt tears prick at her eyes, joy and heartbreak warring in her chest. "Kellen, I know what Theron told you about royal marriages and political alliances," he continued. "He was right about the expectations, but he was wrong about one thing. I am going to be emperor, and emperors make their own rules. You would defy your entire court for me," Zara whispered. "I would defy the universe for you," he replied fiercely. "The question is whether you are brave enough to face it with me." Zara's answer came, not in words, but in action. She closed the distance between them, her hands framing his face as she pulled him down for a kiss that was everything their diplomatic meetings had promised and more. His lips were warm and soft, and when his arms came around her, she felt like she had finally found her place in the cosmos. A new beginning. 3 months later, Zara stood on the observation deck of the Imperial flagship, watching as 2 fleets representing dozens of worlds gathered for the signing of the most comprehensive peace treaty in galactic history. The Kellen-Walsh Accords, as they had come to be known, established new protocols for interspecies cooperation and cultural exchange. Kellen appeared beside her, magnificent in his emperor's robes, but with the same gentle smile that had captured her heart. His father had passed peacefully 2 weeks earlier, leaving him to inherit a throne he was finally ready to claim. "Any regrets?" he asked, slipping his arm around her waist. Zara leaned into his embrace, feeling the warm pulse of the luminescent patterns beneath his clothing. "About becoming an empress? About leaving Earth? About marrying the most stubborn, arrogant, impossible man in the galaxy?" "Yes, all of that," Kellen laughed. "Not a single one," Zara replied, turning in his arms to face him. "Though I reserve the right to continue challenging your royal decrees when they're stupid. I would be disappointed if you did not," he murmured against her lips. As they kissed beneath the light of 1,000,000,000 stars, Zara reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that night she spilled wine on an alien prince. Sometimes the universe had a sense of humor about bringing people together, even when they seemed destined to be enemies. Their love story would become legend throughout the galaxy, proof that understanding and acceptance could bridge any divide. The woman who had dared to challenge a prince's authority had become an empress who ruled beside him with wisdom, courage, and a love that would endure across the stars. And in the grand ballrooms of Harmony Prime, diplomats still told the tale of the human touch who won the heart of an emperor by treating him like a person instead of a god. It was, they agreed, the most romantic, diplomatic incident in galactic history.